Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this installment of Lectures for APUSH. We're going to continue our discussion about the build-up to war, as in sixth period we didn't get as far as we did in second period, but it's always good to review. Okay, remember where we finished, or we're going to pick up, is after Uncle Tom's Cabin in 1852. We get decisiveness in the United States. This idea of Western expansion and slavery will start making the line of sectionalism between the North and the South even more prevalent. So this is where we stand as we head into the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Now, Senator Stephen Douglas, and we should know that like the powerhouse congressman Henry Clay, Stephen C. Calhoun from South Carolina have passed in between 1850 and 1852, and the Senator Stephen Douglas kind of wants to fill that role. He wants a railroad to run through Illinois. It's going to benefit property. It's going to connect the west to the north, specifically Illinois kind of being that middle ground. But to get, and we should understand, Douglas is a Democrat. The Whig Party is slowly failing at this time. Some Whigs are looking for different avenues. And so we get this, and this is a political move by Douglas. He wants this railroad, but he needs Southern Democrats to get on board, and the only way he feels he can do this is by allowing for popular sovereignty in the Kansas Territory. He's going to split it into the Kansas Territory and the Nebraska Territory, and he's going to leave it up to this idea of popular sovereignty that we saw come around because of the Compromise of 1850. Now, in protest to this, we will get the Republican Party that we now see. One thing you really need to know about the political party, that it stands on this platform of free labor, that everyone has the right to be better than themselves. Okay? And so with this idea, it is not against abolition, or it's not for abolition, I should say. Rather, it is for the stop of the spreading of slavery. And this is a big thing to understand. Although abolitionists, this would be the closest to what they wanted. This is going to bring in the Know Nothing Party, a nativist party against immigration, especially Irish Catholics. It's going to bring them in. It's going to bring the Whigs, who don't have a party, because it's going to be for industry, in. It's also going to bring the Free Soilers in. It's going to bring Northern Democrats in who do not believe in what the South is doing, as we'll see in a little later. But it will become this party of protest, and now we really start seeing this sectional divide between the North and the South. And that's what the Mason-Dixon line will be, between free states and slave states. And this is what we'll get here. Okay, and the Mason-Dixon line will go right along this, and then we get Kansas, Nebraska. Popular sovereignty leaves it up to the state to decide. But what happens here is that other states are going to realize how crucial this is and move into the Kansas Territory. And so with that, there's this assumption that because we get a free state with a slave state, that the Nebraska Territory, which is the Dakotas and Nebraska, will become free, and then Kansas will become slave. However, that's not the case. Many in Kansas already are against slavery. A lot of them are small farmers. Abolitionists will start sending in people to support Kansas. However, the South will send in their own people, and especially from Missouri, they'll cross the state border, and they will be called the Border Ruffians, and they're going to set up camp. And remember, it's based on the state constitution, so you need to get Kansas to vote on the state constitution and vote for a constitution that brings in slavery. Now, this is going to cause much bloodshed, and we get our crazy, cray-cray John Brown, much like David Walker. He was very religious, believed in the God of the Old Testament, a very, very, very violent God, and he goes about doing this. And so he is going to bring the fight to Kansas territory against these border ruffians. We're going to see violence. You're going to get establishment of two governments, one pro-slavery, one anti-slavery. You're going to get a massacre in Lawrence. John Brown is then going to lead a counter-massacre to that. However, you do, when President Buchanan is elected, you are going to get a Lee-Compton Constitution that is for slavery, that President Buchanan accepts, but was defeated by both Democrats and Republicans. It was defeated by Democrats because Douglas, who believes in popular sovereignty, knew that the Lee-Compton Constitution wasn't by the people of Kansas. It was by one specific group. Thus, he gets enough Democrats to turn this down, and with Republicans who did not want the spread of slavery into the territories, they are able to defeat this. But this will be a continuing issue, and it only gets better. During this time, and we talk about our Congress being so against each other, there was this Brooks-Sumner fight. Now, Charles Sumner was from Massachusetts, an abolitionist. He's giving the speech based on Kansas, Nebraska, and the violence there. And Preston Brooks from South Carolina basically gets up and beats him with a golden cane. Now, the South loves this. Brooks will get canes shipped to him in the mail, but this will become kind of the rise, a great example of the rise of tensions between the North and the South. And just to make matters worse, right when Buchanan is elected in 1856, we get the final decision on the Dred Scott case. Now, Dred Scott was a slave. He then moves to Illinois, then moves to the Wisconsin Territory with his master. He returns to Missouri, and he sues for his freedom. Roger Taney is the Chief Justice, and he's going to basically feel like he can end the slavery question once and for all with this decision. And so the biggest thing we get out of this is that the Missouri Compromise is unconstitutional. But it goes a little farther. He establishes that blacks are not on equal footing as whites. Whites created this country. Blacks have no history, deep history in this country, and thus will not be citizens and do not have access to the courts. He takes this a step farther. He could have stopped there. He goes farther, says slave owners have the right to their property wherever they wanted, going to the Fifth Amendment. Also, this gives justification for that fugitive slave clause, making it even stronger. But the federal government and Congress does not have any power to ban slavery in any territory. So although the Kansas-Nebraska Act repealed the Missouri Compromise, the Dred Scott case makes it unconstitutional. And the South sees this as a huge victory. The North cries foul. They see that the Supreme Court is controlled by the South, that it's just a part of the slave-holding South. And so the split and division in our country becomes even stronger. And we're getting to a point of no return. Because now not only the South sees this, the North, but the South starts flaunting this idea that they can spread slavery wherever they want. And one of the most read, I should say, not watched, because it was hard, no TV at this time, but most read was the Lincoln-Douglas debates. Now, Lincoln had been a young Whig congressman. He had been defeated numerous times in elections. We'll talk more about Lincoln this week. But these debates will be against the great senator of Illinois, Stephen Douglas. He will be seen kind of as the big dog on campus. And so what happens here is that Douglas, its position is he believes in popular sovereignty. He believes that states should be able to choose. This goes against what the South really wanted. Okay, and so Southern Democrats are going to be against this. Northern Democrats are going to be for this. But Lincoln stands up and says, no, we can't allow for the expansion of slavery into this territory, which is the Republican platform, and they go back and forth. However, Douglas makes it a racial thing. He brings in racism to it. He does say blacks are inferior. Lincoln does not do this. He believes that although he has some of these dispositions, he doesn't bring them up in these debates. He feels blacks should have the ability to grow in America as free labor, but doesn't support the abolition of slavery, just not the expansion. This will give him fame in the Republican Party. This will split the Democratic Party between Northern Democrats and Southern Democrats. The party that Jackson had spent so much time unifying was now becoming split. And only to make matters worse, right before an election, we get John Brown, yes, the same John Brown from Kansas, will show up. And with a group of supporters, some black, some white, will take over the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry. He will be caught, arrested, ironically, by the soon-to-be commander of the Southern armies, Robert E. Lee. He will be executed, but he gives us a quote. Oh, by the way, Henry David Thoreau thought John Brown was a crucified hero. John Brown at his execution says, I, John Brown, am quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land, and talking about slavery, will never be purged away but with blood. He sees a civil war coming, but I don't know if he's not just stopping there. He might be talking about this crime basically against humanity, against blacks, to last a long time. It's an interesting quote. I, John Brown, am quite certain that the crimes of the guilty land will never be purged away but with blood. Okay, we get to the election of Lincoln in 1860. Now, he was elected on a platform of containment, not emancipation. We need to understand that. Many people think he believed in emancipation because this is what he does during the Civil War, but that is not the case. He is against the expansion of slavery, but he wants the Union to stay together. He is also, as the Whig Party was, and as the Federalist Party was very pro-business, but he wanted to connect the West to the North. And this had been happening. The Industrial Revolution and the Market Revolution was in full swing. He wanted high tariffs, internal improvements. When I say internal improvements, it means roads. This is very, very Henry Clay-esque. And the American system, a homestead bill to give people more land, and a Pacific Railroad to connect the West Coast to the East Coast. He did not appear on many ballots in the South and did not receive a single Southern Electoral College vote. He also will not receive a majority of the popular vote. He will only have 40% of the popular vote, but he will, because he's in the North, get enough Electoral College votes. And this is key. Now, if you look at our peeps in the election, you can see there's two Democratic. Because of Douglas and his debates in 1858, and then when they get to the Democratic Convention, he is for popular sovereignty. Breckinridge it is for popular sovereignty, but really he wants laws on the books, and the Southern Democrats want laws on the books to allow slavery in these territories. You also get John Bell, who kind of just stays very cold, okay, in the sense that He's not going to have a stance on the issue of slavery, but he wants to keep the country united. You're going to see the two Democrats in Bell in the South. You're going to see basically all four in the North, and this is the map you get. Now, Douglas will get quite a bit of the popular vote, but he will not get much of the Electoral College vote. He won't win very many states. The North will be for, besides New Jersey, will be for Lincoln. The South will be for Breckinridge, although Bell will take some of those states, and so they split some of those Electoral College votes. But we do get Lincoln having a majority, and he will become president. This map shows a divided United States. We are not to civil war yet, but because of this, not immediately, but soon after, we get South Carolina seceding on December 20th, 1860, It will be followed closely by 6 other states before Lincoln ever took office, which he will in March 4th, 1861. Lincoln believed that no state had the right to secede from the Union. Buchanan, who is a lame duck president, right, has not very much power, is on his way out. He believes that no state had the right to secede from the Union, but the federal government had no right to stop a state. He doesn't stop this. And South Carolina will say slaveholding states cannot be safe in subjection to non-slaveholding states. They now feel, with Lincoln becoming president, they feel like they are in the minority and that they will not be represented. They have, because of the Dred Scott case, they are outspoken about the expansion of slavery into territories, and so they feel like this is a threat. The last ditch of to compromise, as these 7 states have left, is Kentucky Senator John Crittenden. He'll bring up this Crittenden Compromise. This is the closest thing we'll get to a compromise, Henry Clay-esque. 3630 line extended all the way to the West Coast. Slavery in the South, forbidden in the North. It would be a constitutional amendment, meaning this could not ever change. Lincoln is totally against this. Lincoln thinks that this will cause more problems than good, and he is going to stay firm on his Republican platform of stopping the expansion of slavery into this territory, or into all territory. And so it's not necessarily the South that does this. It is Lincoln and the Republicans. Remember, he's going to give a House divided speech that says we can't be half slave, half free. Okay, that slavery is going to just be able to not expand. He's not going to want the abolition, but he just doesn't want it to expand. Okay, so we get this line. Now, if you talk to me, you can see right here, we got 3630 as we talked in class. Let's go back. And Santa Cruz, so they would be 30 would be up here somewhere in this area. Santa Cruz right here, so it would be really close to where we're at. This is where we're at in 1861. You get the states that seceded, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The Deep South, where the majority of population is slaves. You get states that did not secede until the fall of Fort Sumter, which we'll talk about in class. And then you get these 4 border states that will be key. And one reason why we can't get rid of slavery, because we need to keep these a part of the North as we fight war, and then you get the Union states. Kansas will come in 1861. All right, I know this is long, but this is super, super important. I hope you enjoy this so we can talk about it more on Monday and Tuesday. Have a wonderful weekend.